how you would fit into our portfolio, how you would fit into the U.S. market, what you've done so far as a brand, where, your domestic market, how our sales been there, how long have you been there, and then where you are internationally. And then, it's something that intrigues me and says, can we follow up with you? And usually if I get that, I will respond.
Thank you so much, Raj, for being our guest here. I think, what better than having a perfect sized importer. This is sort of the importer I always tell brands to work with, who's not so big, who's genuinely passionate, who's been in the business for more than 10 to 15 years easily, who've seen a lot of cycles. This is a classic example of a partner which sort of the small to medium sized brand should work with. So great, and thanks for having me here. I think as far as the intro goes, I'll say what I can a little bit, but then I'm sure you can add more to it. So Raj has typical import business where he sells to distributors, and that's a classic US 3-tier system, as some of you may know. We also have most of you, the whole topic is how to pitch to a USA spirits importer. So most of you, I'm assuming, are, in the audience, a sort of overseas brand looking for a US importer. So we may have people around the world. So, just so you know the context of this room. I think as far as, your passion, I've always seen that you are a whiskey advocate as far as, by the looks of things and the history, but I'm sure the brands that you represent are really, some iconic brands which are great in their countries, which have legacy, which have good stories, but I'll end it there, Raj. So give me a little history about before import business. How did you end up here? And just walk us over your import journey as well.
Yeah, thanks, Sid. Thanks for having me. And hello, everyone. Either good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Good evening for some of you. So we started the company 15 years ago, so in 2009. Before that, I spent 27 years in the corporate world, but decided time was right to follow my passions and do something on my own. So my business partners started the company. I grew up in Canada, and so that we had a Canadian operation, but there was a product that they were selling or importing into Canada that wanted to come into the US, and so that was my first foray into it. I did not know anything about the business side of it in the US, and I knew about spirits, I knew about wine, but I had to learn everything. So having to have dwelled into everything and trying to find out all of the things, I have a lot of knowledge that I can share with people, because this was not an easy journey. Working in the US in spirits, it's difficult. You have to remember that every state is like a different country. So we have 51 countries to deal with. And in some states, you have to have multiple distributors. You have to have a distributor in every state, but in some states, multiple distributors. So it is difficult, but it's exciting and it's challenging. I mean, as Sid said, we've seen a lot of cycles. But I'm here. Enough about me. I'm here to share some knowledge with everyone here. So we'll take it from there.
Great. Let's sort of, the questions I've framed are overall as a sales process, right? So from prospecting to the pitch to the closing and to the follow-up to the first order and market kickoff and so on, So let's start with prospecting phase. And in that comes, how do we get your email? How do we find you? How do we discover you? How do we cold call you? And usually what I would do is, there's LinkedIn, there is email, there is Insta, there is phone call, right? So give me an example of, if you were a supplier, let's say in Scotland or anywhere in the world, how would you do your prospecting? And what would those sample messages on each of those 3 or 4 platforms look like, just to get your attention?
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned Scotland. That's a good way to start. A lot of countries have trade organizations that help small distilleries and other businesses to get into different countries, the US specifically. I know Scotland has a trade association. Australia has one. There's a few others. So certainly if you have not tapped into that, I would suggest you do that. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, but LinkedIn, most people who contact me, it seems to be through LinkedIn, which is interesting because if you just search through things, but the problem is sometimes people contact me without doing the research properly. So, like pitching a wine to me, for example, it's great. I love wine, but we don't handle wine. We're strictly a spirits importer. So don't waste your energy on doing that. Make sure you do the research. Look at our website, understand what brands we carry, why we carry them, and make sure that your product would be a fit for our brand. So if you're gonna pitch to me, make sure that you are saying, hey, this is what we're all about, and we feel that we would be a good fit for you with you because of these reasons.
Let's say, if there was an email intro, what would that subject look like? Like Sid's Whiskey looking for import partner?
That might be fine. I think it has to be a little more exciting than that.
Mm-hmm.
Award-winning spirit from whatever country, looking to enter the U.S. Something like that would probably intrigue me more than just the name of the brand or just, hi, we want to come to the U.S. That's fine, but I get hundreds of those.
Yeah.
So, you have to there's a 30, they call it a 30-second elevator pitch or lift,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're on a lift or an elevator with somebody for 30 seconds, and that's the time you have to describe either what you do or what your product is, that's what you have to aim for. So be able to tell me in 30 seconds what you have and what you're all about in a way that intrigues me to want to ask more questions.
Got it. So let's just double click on that, right? Like, what would that look like? What's the first sort of paragraph in that email? Hey Raj, super excited to discuss a partnership with you. We are an award-winning 90 plus wine, blah blah, or spirits. Obviously enough about us, but then I would go straight in the second para. I looked at your portfolio and you carry some amazing brands, including Umbro, da da da. I throw some
Yeah.
names and then I say, we think that we will be a great fit under your gin category at the 35 price point and would love to discuss this. And here's what we have done in other markets. What was your suggestion there?
That's perfect. I think you summarized it really well, Sid. I mean, I think doing that, so telling us, making sure, letting us know that you've done your research and there's a reason that you're coming to us or you're pitching to us, you selected us, and also, telling us how you would fit into our portfolio, how you would fit into the U.S. market, what you've done so far as a brand, where, your domestic market, how our sales been there, how long have you been there, and then where you are internationally. And then, it's something that intrigues me and says, can we follow up with you? And usually if I get that, I will respond. I do travel a lot, so sometimes it'll take a little bit longer, but I'll respond. And typically my response will be, hey, can you send me, if you haven't already attached it to the original email, send me information about the distillery, about the brand, photographs, bottle shots. Tell me, I want to know more about the process of how the brand is made. I'll be upfront that we're more excited usually about brands that have their own distillery or small family operated businesses. I do recognize, and we do carry brands that are, they don't make product, but they take it. So they're independent bottlers. So they
Mm-hmm.
they buy casks from different distilleries and they mature them. They decide when to bottle them. But they have a story to tell and they have lineage or pedigree that makes it interesting and exciting. So that's the kind of thing I want. And what's important from a supplier to importer relationship, as far as we go, is honesty and clarity. So I don't want you to be, I've had brands where they are reluctant to tell me if they're making it, if they're sourcing it, what
Yeah.
they're doing with it. If you can't give me your story, how can I give it to my distributors? Okay.
Yeah.
And my distributors, a lot of our distributors are very technical. They want the whole story behind how you make it, what you do. Does the distiller sleep in the distillery during distillation? Does the does the family pick their own grapes to make cognac or Armagnac? That kind of stuff. Those are little vignettes that really excite people, and it
Mm,
allows us and our distributors to be able to go out and pitch to bars and restaurants and retailers.
got it.
We like to think of ourselves as a extension of the distillery, of the supplier, so that you should feel comfortable that we are delivering your key messages to our channels, our distribution channels, and our key accounts. And likewise, that information is getting passed on from our distributors to their key accounts. So it's very straight line.
Hmm.
There's the right messages are being sent. And that's one of the things that's really important for us. We spend a lot of time educating, working with our distributors. I mean, I'm a certified spirits educator for WSET, a whiskey brand ambassador, tutor. So one of my partners is a master som, and has a great spirits background. So we like to make sure that we are educating and telling people what they need to know.
Just on that first thing that we were at, right? So, what is a good closing in that email, Raj? So, for a follow up, right? Like you said, we would love to follow up with you, but I would ask, like, hey, Raj, would love to send you some samples and the pricing and more information. Can I
Yeah.
do that? Or something like that,
Well,
right?
that I think that's getting ahead of it.
Okay.
Don't uh, don't waste your time sending samples unless we're interested. I'm
No,
not
I
going
would
to.
ask, I mean, in an email,
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
first email. So is
right.
that I'm asking you for a good close. What is a
Yeah,
good next step close in the cold
yep.
call email?
Well, I would actually like to see at the close. Um, we or I hope we've intrigued your interest or piqued your interest in this. Please let us know what additional information we can provide you. And is it okay if I follow up in a week? Don't just send an email and then I respond to that email and it's coming from a, a general email delivery box and it gets lost.
Let me pitch here, right? So I've said that, in the last paragraph says, Raj would love to send you more information about how we make this, why we think, we want to grow in US, and how we will help you grow in the US market, and the pricing. And if once you review this, Raj would love to send you the samples. Does this work for you? So we can send you some more information.
Yeah, that's fine too. I mean, I think that the reason that I'm hesitating on samples is samples is the next step. I mean, if you've checked, if we check all the boxes for our own uh, review and say yes, this is great, send us
Agreed,
samples.
agreed, 100%.
Yeah,
Samples is the third phase. I'm saying
yeah,
for a deck where I'm going next, this is the cold email. I want to send you a little more information, the deck,
right.
the logistics. And then once you say, all right, this is interesting, send me samples. And
Yes.
then after samples is the context for the price, right? Like then you can discuss
Well,
the
I
pricing.
I probably want to know the pricing before I get the samples, because if the price is up here and I look and say, hey, that's not going to fit in the market, then why would I waste your time getting samples? I have
Understood.
more samples than I need.
Understood.
So I'm not gonna take samples just for the sake of having them. But
Understood.
there has to, again, it's all comes down to honesty and a open, honest relationship that
Agreed.
here, okay, yeah, this sounds really exciting. We're interested. So, and normally what we'll do is when we do get samples, when we ask for samples, we will send those. Not only will we try them ourselves, but we'll send them to our key markets so that they can review it and say, hey, this is great. Yeah, we're on board. We'll bring it in. Um, and that's especially important today in today's market because there are so many brands out there.
Mm.
The average retailer in the US gets pitched 100 new brands a week. Okay. And that includes wine and RTDs and everything else, but 100 new items being pitched to them each week by the sales reps. And there's limited space. Like some of the retail shops are very tiny. And, you could have like an incredible product and the retailer says, well, I don't know where I'm going to put this. Okay.
Hmm.
So, you have to make sure that there's something that piques their interest, is going to keep them going. And I often say selling the first bottle is easy, but it's selling the ones after that is the more
Hmm,
difficult one. So you got to make sure
absolutely.
that there's enough support that's going to keep them interested.
Got it. So I'm trying to, I'll come to all that things for sure, right? So on that pitch, for the second phase, do you prefer the next meeting sort of face to face, or still a Zoom call or another email without any sort of a phone call?
Let's say I get the initial email, I respond to it, ask for more information, you send that to me, then the next one would be a virtual meeting, Zoom, whatever
Okay,
else. Okay.
nice.
Because it doesn't make sense. I'm not gonna, fly to wherever to sit down with you. Doesn't make sense. I mean, if we enter into a partnership, a relationship, then certainly I will want to visit you because I want to know more about your operation. I want to meet the people. I want you to meet, know our people so that we all feel like we're on the same page.
Got it. So in that second meeting, right, which is the meeting where I have to convince you for the product tasting, for the samples, let's say, this meeting is all about you buying in the concept, you buying in the entrepreneur, you buying in the whole thing, right?
Right.
What do you think an importer's deck should include? What are the elements? And I think one of the things that I think I wanted to touch base, which you really said, was the samples. I would advise for sure people to send 2 cases, 3 cases for samples so you can do pre-sale because it helps everyone if you have a pre-commitment. So,
Yeah,
so
I agree. Yeah, yeah.
yep. So back on that question, deck, Raj, on what does a good deck look like to you?
History of the history of the owners, history of the distillery, the vision behind the brand, behind the product, where, show if you've been operating for 5 years, show me the trends for 5 years in there. Nice pictures of the products, other markets you're in, and then things like, okay, it comes in 6 pack, 12 packs, 3 packs, whatever. Make sure that you have all that information available because eventually we're going to ask for it. And then, when I see all of that, including pricing. I mean, pricing is important because
Mm-hmm.
don't forget that the three-tier system in the US means that there are going to be three markups. Okay. So, let's say you as a supplier sell something to me for $10. By the time it gets to the retail shelf, it's going to be $30 to $35 retail. Okay. So because we have to incur the shipping costs, excise, marketing costs, then we sell to our distributors. They incur the charges of picking up the product, paying the local state taxes, then their own margin, and then they have to sell to retailers who put their own margin onto it, or bars and restaurants. And, we have the US, there's 14 states that are still government controlled states, which are different to deal with than the open market states. So, there's different ways you have to approach those as well.
Got it. On that pricing slide, right? A lot of suppliers don't know how to make a nice grid of price, meaning X distillery, then suggested price to your distributor, suggested price to retail, suggested price to restaurant, and here's how everyone's going to make money, right? So do you prefer they include that or simply X distillery or winery, let's say, and leave it up to you?
Well, if you do X works from the producer, but also if you don't know, you don't can't project what the pricing will be because eventually, if we're working forward, I will lay everything out on a spreadsheet for you to show, okay, this is what we're buying it for, this is what it's going to end up at, and so this is where we have to make some adjustments. But if you know what you're selling for locally, what the retail price is, indicate that, show that as an example. And the reason that's important is, in today's world, because of the internet, people can go on
Hmm.
and check things and say, oh, it's selling in France for X amount, right? Why is it so much more expensive in the US? And especially because there are a lot of producers who sell online as well.
Mm.
And if you're selling for a price that's less than we're going to sell for, or, through our channels, that's not helping anybody, right? So
True.
you have to have the transparency on that. So tell us what it is, tell us the reason why, and then bear in mind that, there's additional costs to not only enter the US, but any other foreign market.
What is the markup that is good for you for an importer, and what is the markup that is good for a distributor, and what is the
Yep.
markup that is good for a retailer for a
Right.
unknown brand? Like we're not talking
Yeah.
about Johnny Walker.
Yeah. So most parties will work 25 to 30% margin
Okay.
at each level.
All
Okay.
right.
But that is on top of their the landed costs. So the shipping costs, the taxes,
Everything basically, like
warehousing.
everything else is
Right.
out of this. Got it.
Right. So that you have to include those, and then they put their margin on it. Likewise for the distributor and everywhere else. But I'll give you an example. You look at some of the control states, they put 150% margin on it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what they do. It's unfortunately in the U.S. a lot of markets treat it like a way to generate tax revenue, and so
Got it.
they don't care about what it should be for the retail level.
Got it. Let's go on the third phase where, luckily you both marry and sort of there is a partnership and you get started, right? And there is this whole phase of you understanding your expectations from the supplier and they understanding you. So let me ask you, what do you expect from a supplier in your
Hmm.
partnership for an ongoing sort of first
Yep.
1 or 2 years? And then, what do you think they should expect from you? What is the reality?
Yep. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we like to have an agreement with our suppliers, and it's not contractual or everything. It's a pretty simple agreement, but saying here's what we expect from you, and here's what you should expect from us. And that gives some clarity to things. So what we expect is that, if you again, I go back to being honest and transparent and having clear communication, but if you're going to be introducing a new brand or a new variant, well, tell us in advance. Don't just let me see it on Instagram and say, hey, what's that about? Because other people are going to ask me anyway, right? If the customers are out there. So let me know that. If there's any changes to the labeling or bottling or anything else like that, we need to know that. If you're going to do price increases, we need to know that at least 3 months in advance,
Hmm.
right? It takes that time to work its way through the system. And speaking of price increases, don't do price increases every year.
Hmm.
That just, don't do like, okay, so we're going to introduce it retail $25, but a year from now we want it at $35.
Hmm.
That's fooling the customer. So just be, it's okay to start at a higher price and say this is our ultimate where we want to be, but we're going to offer an introductory pricing at this or whatever it is. And then let me know what you're going to do to support the market and support us. What kind of point of sale stuff do you have? Are you willing to come to the market, visit the market? If you come to the market, what are your expectations? What do you want to do?
Hmm.
Right. I mean,
What do you
some
think they should do in their first visit?
let's say we pick up a new brand, we would, as I said, identify maybe 5 or 6 key markets that we would start in. We're not going to flood the market and be in all 50 states to start
Hmm.
off with. That doesn't help anybody. So we would do that, and the idea would be to visit those initial markets,
Hmm.
spend time with the distributor sales team, doing a pitch to them, letting them know what it's all about, and
Hmm.
saying that if you have anything, reach out to me. And then we would do some more, I think, more trade events rather than public events.
Hmm.
We like a couple of public events, but mostly it's got to be trade events because if you look at it, if you have somebody walks into a bar and there's a new product out there and they try it and they really like it, then they're going to go to the retailer and say, hey, I've tried this, I want this. If it's sitting on the retail shelf, there are so many products out there. And
Hmm.
how does your product stand out? If somebody's tried it, it's fine. recently, there was some research recently that showed that the average millennial consumer, I hate using that term, but they now spend 40 to 45 minutes researching a new brand of alcohol before they decide to buy it.
Wow.
Okay. So having those shelf talkers are really important. Having QR codes on those shelf talkers that they can click on and get more information is really important. Telling us, well, okay, if you're making organic products, if you're making biodynamic products, if your distillery is a green operation, if you're more environmentally conscious, those are all important factors that people want to know.
So let's go in the launch, right? Where you want to start with a pallet or two. Maybe you can give your insight on what is a good order size.
Yeah.
And then you kick off and you have that, and then you're launching in one state. What does that first 7 to 14 days look like? And what, as you said, like we're retouching the same things, but I just want to focus on those first seven to
Yeah.
14 days where
Yeah.
what do you do with the brand, let's say, and how can supplier help you there?
Yeah, well, I think going back to the point of getting those initial samples in so that we get them out to the market and they're excited and interested and they say, okay, we'll take X amount of cases when they come in. So don't forget when the product gets shipped,
Mm,
it's going to take a couple of weeks to get from Europe or, longer, 5 or 6 weeks to get from Asia to the port in New York,
mm,
which is where our stuff comes into. And then it has to get to our warehouse, and then the distributor has to pick it up. So from the time it lands, it's probably 2 weeks before the distributor even picks it up. And it's
mm,
another week before they get it. But hopefully in that time period, they're letting all of their customers know, hey, that product that we tried, it's coming, and it's
mm,
on the way here. And let's get excited about it. We have an ability to do targeted Facebook messaging for certain areas. So we can target with demographics, or we can key it to certain retailers, and have those messages up there saying, hey, this Joe's gin is coming in, and it's being in your market first, and here's where you can buy it, or having
nice.
teasers like that. Because obviously if we bring product in and it sits in the warehouse, it doesn't help anybody. Okay.
Correct.
Um, and I will warn you that if you go with an importer who says, yeah, I want to bring in a container, don't fall for that.
Mm,
Unless it's like, RTDs are different, or other products, but the product is most likely going to sit in the warehouse. They'll sell some of it, and then a few months later they'll come back and say, it's not selling.
mm.
You either got to reduce the price, or you got to take the product back, or whatever. And I'm speaking from experience because
Yep,
I know people
100%.
who have done that and had that experience. That's why it's better to start slow and then grow. Get market feedback, get information out there. We have a lot of connections with spirits reviewers, so we'll make sure that they get samples of it and they're writing about it and telling people about it. The more attention that can be brought to your brand, the better. So if
Mm.
you got lots of media information, we'll want that information because our media team will use that to deploy social media, social messaging, social media enforcement.
Got it. If you were a supplier, Raj, right? Let's flip the hat. What would some of the things that you would look at in an importer sitting on the computer, let's say, to just make
Yeah,
sure that, okay, this is the right importer, this is going to pay me, this guy's, legit. I'll just share my couple of things so you understand where I'm going with. I was literally doing Google Earth to see whether the guy actually has a warehouse or not. One. Second, I used to say, all right, you got to pay 50% upfront just to scare and see the behavior. Some people, I never hear from them, and some people will say, all right, I normally don't do it, Sid, but at least they're replying in upfront.
yeah.
So what are some ways where you think 4 or 5 things that you can just tease with to understand and let that you're working with a good partner, because you're risking with your first order, right?
Right. So if you're a supplier and you're researching importers to work with, what other brands does the importer have? How long
Mm,
have they been in business? Who are the owners of it? So if you look and there's no disclosure about who owns the business, that's
Mm.
probably a red flag. Um, where
True.
which markets are they distributing into? And
Mm.
usually you can find that out by, they should, if they have it, they'll have it up on there. And
And your customers are super important as well. What kind of
right,
distributors you're exactly selling to?
right. That's what I mean. The distributors, and then
Yeah.
how much the information about brands, how much information about brands is up on their website, right?
Mm.
So if it says, oh, we do wine and spirits, and that's it, you can't find out which wine or which spirits. That's probably a warning too, right?
Mm.
They could be really good importers, but they're not displaying that on in front, so the consumer can see that and find out that information.
What kind of suppliers excite you where you're just having fun? And I'm a big fan of a word called likability. Am I your likable supplier? So
Yeah,
what does that look like?
yeah, that's a good. I think likability is a good point. I think there has to be a connection. There has to be a understanding, like sort of, hey, you. It sounds like I can work with you, and hopefully you feel the same way about me. And here's so we have to make sure that that relationship starts and continues to go forward. That's why we like working with smaller owned suppliers, because I know that I'm going to be able to, pick up the phone a month, 6 months, 6 years from now, and be able to talk to the same person. Okay.
Mm.
That's important to me, and make sure that they know that they can talk to the same person. So if there's something that you have an issue with, I want to know about it. If there's something that I have an issue with, I would hope that you'd want to know about it. So as long as there's that synergy that's present
Hmm.
between both the supplier and the importer, I think that's important. Making sure that your expectations are being met is important.
Hmm.
I'm not going to tell you that, oh, we're going to bring in 6 pallets and those will be gone in 2 weeks. I have no way of knowing that. Okay.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to tell you something that just to appease you and excite you without doing that. I'm a big believer in uh, under under messaging and over delivering. Okay.
Hmm.
So, I'll give you lower expectations, but if we do better than that, we all win. And certainly our focus would be on doing better than that. So
What
it
are
would
some good payment terms, like 30 days or 60 days when you start with an importer?
well, we ideally we like 60 days minimum,
Okay.
because of the transit period for getting product
60
over.
days from the product, it leaves the distillery.
Correct.
Understood. That's
Correct.
fine. Fair enough.
Okay. And some suppliers, we have terms where we pay X amount up front and then the balance in 60, 90 days, whatever. There are suppliers that, because of local financial restrictions, you have to pay them up front.
Got
Okay.
it. Give me
That's the case.
Got it, Raj. Give me some examples of some good pitches that you've seen, like if anything comes to mind, like, where it was perfectly done.
That's a good question. We had a brand that we were importing maybe 10 years ago. But all of their products were bottled in these big square bottles. Okay.
Hmm.
And I was saying to them, well, the retailers are saying these are too large. They
Hmm.
take up double space on the shelves, same with the bars and everything else like that. And they were like, nope, I'm sorry, that's the bottles we use.
Hmm.
Um, so fast forward about 3 years ago, they came to us and said, hey, that question you had about that? Well, we've moved, we have our new whole new warehouse. We're keeping all our barrels, and we're offering things in different types of bottles as well. So if you'd like to come back and work with us, and they had grown to such a point and had a lot more to offer,
Hmm.
and we're willing to make some changes. That really
Hmm.
helped. And so that was, and some of the other little things that, hey, we're doing this in Europe. Do you want to do this in the US?
Mm.
So that was a good pitch, a willingness to say, I understand you, I hear you, and this is what I'm willing to do. We had another brand that was an interesting pitch that I mentioned samples earlier, but this brand, sent us a nice package. I wasn't expecting it, but it arrived nicely packaged, nice presentation. The samples, a couple of samples, nicely presented, a glass, some other POS material. It's like, wow, this is really nice. I didn't even know it was coming. Then they called and said, "Hey, did you get that? We just wanted to pick your interest on it, and hopefully you've had a chance to try it. Are you interested in it?" So there's different ways to do
Mm.
that. There's I think also, I read a lot and I'm aware of what's going on in the worldwide marketplace. So if there's something that a distillery or a brand is doing, I will approach them and say, "Hey, I read you were doing this. This is really exciting. I'd really be interested in bringing you in."
Nice,
So
nice.
we don't sit there and wait for suppliers to come to us. In a lot of cases, we approach them as well.
That's good. Let's give it to, I'll pass on the mic, I guess, to Ankita because we have some questions from the audience and I think I want to bring value to them as well. So, Ankita, over to you.
So, Raj, there are a couple of questions for you. So, one is, do you cover any particular states within the US? And how established do you want a brand to be in their home market?
Yep.
And are you interested in brand that feels the US would be even better fit than their home market?
Okay, that's a good question. So we distribute into 46 states. Okay. And I'll clarify that as if we're bringing in a spirit, we want to be able to sell it for the whole US. We don't cherry pick. So we will be the exclusive importer for that. Wine is handled differently. Wine, you can have multiple importers, and usually importers are distributors as well in each of their states. But we would want that brand to be exclusively ours. And that way we're making sure the same message is getting everywhere across the country. So 46 states. I'd like to see why you think your brand isn't doing as well in your home country. What are the issues? If there's some challenges that are restricting you from doing that, I want to know that. It's hard. I'll be honest. It's hard to sell a product in the U.S. and say, "Oh, it's only selling 10 cases in the home country, but we think we can sell 1,000 cases here." There's got to be something unique or intriguing about the product to be able to do that.
Coming up next is, from a brand's perspective, would you advise approaching a number of importers at the same time to create some sort of demand?
It comes down to what I said earlier about researching the importers and who you want to work with, narrowing down the list. There's nothing wrong with having 3 or 4 on a short list and approaching them. But if you're going to go out and send it out to 20 importers, we all talk. We know things. So if somebody says, "Oh, I was approached by this brand and I'm not interested in them," or whatever, we'll know that. But if you limit the number of importers that you pitch to, that you approach, that's better because you have to be satisfied. You have to be comfortable with who you're going to be partnering with. So I would not say restrict it to only one and stay there, because obviously if there isn't that, the synergy, the relationship, the feel good that Sid used before, then it's not going to benefit either party.
Do you cover certain sectors within the on and off trade, like high-end bar, restaurants, certain retailers? And if somebody is interested, where should they get this information on your website?
Yeah, so we yes to all of those. It depends on the market, but there are, like New York, for example, we have relationships with all the top retailers and all the top bars and restaurants. So I know, like, I can let them know, "Hey, this is coming in, a new brand," and they will all say, "Yeah, well, that's great. We'll want them." So we do have direct connections with the key retail accounts and the key on-premise accounts as well. And that's in most of the key markets. So New York, New Jersey, California, Texas, Illinois, to name a few. So
as a producer, how important it is to present multiple products. We only have one and often get asked, "What else do you have?" We like to have a selection. So yeah.
I'm fine with one. if there's a danger in having too many products because that overwhelms both the distributors and the on-premise and off-premise markets. I mean, they're not going to want somebody to come in and say, "Hey, we got 10 different products here." They might be interested in one or two. But if you're going to have one, bear in mind that, okay, so what's coming next? So if you have a whiskey, are you planning to release like a different version of it in the same category? That's kind of important too. But I'm much more comfortable in having a limited number of products being offered rather than a whole catalog of things.
Coming up next is, how do you prefer to communicate, whether it's email or calls? Do you look at how quickly people respond to you? Is there an element to keep up the momentum? And do you like to deal directly with founders or, let's say, sales heads?
Initially email, and we'll have some email exchanges, and then I like to have like a virtual meeting, so a Zoom call or something similar. I think that's important, again, for getting to know the people. I like to know the founder, but if the founder's not active in the business, then I want to talk to people who are active in the business. So whether it's the managing director or the distiller, head of distilling, or head of sales or whatever. And sometimes I'll say, okay, I want to meet the whole team, and I'm going to bring my team on as well if we get to that level. But again, the more relationships we have, knowing who our contact is going to be is really important. I don't want, okay, you're going to talk to this person. Oh, and then next month, oh, you're talking to this person now, and then you're talking to this person. I just want consistency in the relationship.
So do you deal with national distributors? Is it better to work with small craft distributors if one is a new startup brand in the USA?
Okay, so we do not deal with national distributors. In the 46 states we're in, we have all medium-sized distributors, local distributors who know the market, who've been in the market for a long time, have the relationships. The problem we've found with working with national distributors is that if if your product's there, they don't know it as the product. They know it as a number. And one day you're talking to one person, one day you're talking to somebody else. And I'll be honest with you, most of those national distributors, they're going to look for money to help them sell the brand. And the more money you're willing to put up, the more they're willing to turn around and sell it. So, but then they'll do that, and then their attention will be on something else. So you have to keep that, feeding it in there. Whereas, we're going to be genuine partners with you, or us, or any other smaller, medium-sized distributor or importer. They're going to take more interest in you and your brands, what you're all about. They're going to pay attention to what you're doing. And likewise, they're going to convey that and make sure that distributors are getting that information as well.
Raj, really, thank you so much. Any closing remarks?
No, I just thank you, Sid and Anita, for having me. I think this is, unfortunately, I can't see everybody else who's on this, but I hope that everyone took something away from this, and feel free to reach out to me, even if you want to just run something by me and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about. It's not a commitment that we're going to be your importer, but I'm willing, to give you some advice. I started in the business, and I had to learn, and if you're new to the business, I want you to learn as well. So I'm willing to do that.
Great. Thank you so much, Raj. I think we may want to add, I mean, I'm sure you can say, but I still think US is the best market for brands. I truly believe, because you get a chance to be an unknown person and make it happen, because the merit of performance-based rewards is still there. So anything that you think that street still, awards that entrepreneur.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is, if you're willing to work hard and I mean, there's stories about, people used to drive from retailer to retailer, with stuff in their back of the car and say, hey, look what I got, and there's still brands that get built like that. But there are different ways of doing it in today's world. Electronic media really helps to push that. But I think one other thing is make sure you have social media presence. Make sure it's up to date, and share that information out there. So if we're going to work with you, we want to know what's on your social media channels, and make sure that we're putting it on ours, so the same message is getting out there.